Hey, what's up guys, you Gypsy, and I am back here today bringing you guys my round 1 coverage of Smogon World Cup XIII. So this is going to be my pool matches, and before I jump into the replays, I'm just going to give you guys a quick intro into what this tournament's all about for those of you who aren't too familiar with Smogon tournaments, because I know a lot of my viewers are draft league players, so only natural that a few of you guys may not be as informed as an OU audience would be. So yeah, essentially World Cup is one of the larger tournaments run by Smogon. It's been running for 13 years now. This is the 13th World Cup. So yeah, it's a pretty long running tour. It's one of the most recognized and largest tours, and essentially what it is 16 regions fighting off against each other. In round 1, the intention is to get into one of the top 8 spots to progress to round 2. Same way any kind of big tournament like that would work. And I'm going to be playing for Oceania. This is a region that includes Australia and New Zealand. So this is a team I played for last year, and we got a fantastic group of guys. A little bit of a history on Oceania. Oceania is one of the big powerhouses in World Cup. They back a number of years ago, they were multiple winners. Like, they won multiple years World Cup. They are very, very solid. We've got a ton of talent in the older gens, and it's only in recent years that the team has kind of struggled to progress in the tour, mainly because of a lack of performance from our newer gen players. So last year I played for Oceania as well, and I ended up going 1-2 in my pools. My first game was against Poek, who's a very solid tour player in his own right. I had a pretty fun game versus him. I really think I had a good shot to win that game with my banned Zygarde, but unfortunately I got a 3-turn outrage, which really set me back that game and pretty much caused me to lose my Zygarde, who otherwise would have been a very solid win con there. But my second game I played off against XIII-Round, and I pretty much just lost that game straight up. I brought a team that matched up very badly versus what he brought. That was just an L. Game 3, I built I built this really nice Mega Aero, Pursuit Mega Aero, and Subseed Serb team, and 6-0'd with that Destiny device. And by the end of that World Cup, Oceania was in a spot where we were going to have to potentially fight for a tiebreak next World Cup to actually participate in the tour in general. So it came down to a tiebreak at the end of the season, at the end of the World Cup, I should say. And I had to play in the tiebreak to help our team avoid that situation. I won versus Analytic, and that saved us from having to go into a tiebreak situation this year, as well as guys like Earthworm winning their tiebreak games. So yeah, we had a pretty interesting season. I keep saying season. We had a pretty interesting run last year in World Cup. Our old gen players performed really well as usual, but it was just our newer gen players, including myself, that didn't put up the numbers that we really needed to move forward. So this year, obviously, that's a real emphasis. We want to improve how we played last year, and yeah, really achieve what we know we can, because we've got a ton of talent, and it's only got better this year. We've got our new gens have got better, and we've got more talent in our new gens. Our older gens just as good as ever. So yeah, it's looking to be a pretty fun World Cup. But obviously, I've got to win as many games in these pools as I can to help out my team. So that's pretty much the intro done. I'm going to jump into these replays now. Hopefully that gives you guys a better insight into how this kind of tournament functions. But yeah, essentially in this game 1, I am facing off against Suapah. This is my first opponent that I played in my pool. I have Suapah, Tricking, and JohnxYui. So these are all guys that are pretty solid OU players. Tricking is a name that I've seen quite a lot in some different gen tours. Suapah's a pretty good OU player, and JohnxYui is a guy that I've seen playing OU a while ago. Like, he's not bad. He's a pretty solid player in his own right. So that definitely a strong pool. Not the scariest pool by any means, but certainly not a pool that I can sleep on at all, because these guys know how to play. So in this first game, this is a team that I built, and I'm pretty proud of, actually. Initially, it was Initially, it was a taunt Z Keldeo over this Greninja, but I was talking to my boys on my team, and we decided that this team really appreciated spikes, and I made the switch to this really interesting Protean Ninja pre-game, and it really really looks nice here at matchup. So pretty much this is a Roost, like a Roost SD store breaking Gliscor. Very nice versus opposing Fat with Clef and Pharaoh, Lando, stuff like that. We have a Spikes, Hidden Power Fire, like Hidden Power Fire, Ice Beam, Hydro, Gren, which is just really nice, with Waterium Z, which is very solid for stuff like Clef, like Hydro into Z Hydro, knocks out defensive Clef. We've got AV Bulu, really nice Life Orb Zam, which this is a mon that I was really keen to bring to World Cup because I hadn't seen a ton of people using regular Zam. Mega Zam is making a comeback for its ability to check Magma Heatran with Recover and Trace. So pretty much, yeah, Zam is rising in popularity, but regular Zam is not very common at all, and Ban T-Tar is everywhere. So pretty much the kind of idea behind this team is it kind of bluffs Mega Zam and like Ban Tara matchup, but in actuality it is Life Orb Zam and Mega T-Tar with rocks. And then lastly I have a defensive Celesteela. So yeah, Life Orb Zam choose teams with like Gliscor, Pharaoh, Pex, Clef teams apart. I am Encore, so I can Encore lock stuff like Mega Laddie into Carmind or Roost. Just very, very solid in this current meta with so much fat going around. And Zam obviously appreciating spikes and rock support from Gren and T-Tar respectively. So yeah, looking at the team Super's brought, he has a Zone, which is probably Scarf to help his Kartana matchup. Mega Zam, probably Scarf Lando because double Scarf is appreciated on a team so weak to Zygarde. He's definitely defensive Clef, probably Scarf Fat Lando. Could be Scarfed Gren, but I don't think it's could be Protean Gren, but more than likely Ash Gren, because he has two other viable Scarfers and some firepower in Specs makes sense. And then probably like Spikes Pharaoh with Stealth Rock Clef. That's my thoughts of the matchup anyway. So gonna jump into this game. I'm gonna lead off with Gren, as he does lead off with his Lando here. Now he's gonna fear, like he should fear Scarfed Gren at matchup, because it's my really only viable Scarf from this team, bar Scarf Bulu, which isn't really a set right now. So Scarf Gren makes a ton of sense, but given how quickly people are to just staying with Lando and just U-turn on anything if it's Scarfed, like not Scout for Scarf Gren, I am gonna go hard out this turn. I'm just going to switch into my my Gliscor here. It covered him staying in and going for U-turn because it procced my Toxic Orb, so I don't have to feel like a stray knock from Pharaoh removing my orb before I can get off the Poison Heal. And it also covered him going hard out into Pharaoh because I can knock off this thing's lefties, and that's going to be really pivotal in not only my T-Tar putting in work, but my Gren, my Zam. And if I can leave Pharaoh around like 85, around this 80-ish mark, it's going to be in range of Life Orb Focus Blast from Zam. So he's going to set up, he's going to go for Leech this turn actually and miss my Gliscor. Not too consequential. He would have gained back a bit of health on his Pharaoh though, so that kind of sucks for him that he missed. But we get off that knockoff chip, and I'm just going to hit him with the EQ here to wear him down a little bit as he sets up a Spike. Now this turn he's probably going to go hard out into Lando or Clef. So I am going to go into my Gren wanting to get up some spikes, because yeah, I really want spikes up. Spikes up really hurt his team, and provides Alakazam with so much more of like pressure on his team, pretty much, because you know, Magnezone, Clef are pretty much his Zam switch-ins at this stage, and Pharaoh is going to take a spike every time it comes in. So yeah, getting up a spike is going to be really important. But he is actually going to switch out to Lando here. Now he should know, based on turn 1, that my Gren that my Gren hard switched out. He should be aware that his Lando is actually slower. Is actually faster than my Gren, because he switched out first turn 1, implying that my Gren is not Scarfed. I'll go back and show you guys here. So turn 1 his Lando is going to switch first, and in the instance that I was a Scarf Gren, my Gren would have obviously switched out first. So at this stage, fast forward a little bit. At this stage, I was expecting him to make the U-turn play. In case he had picked up on that initial turn 1 piece of information there from his Lando. So I am going to switch again, expecting him to go for the U-turn, but he's actually just going to go hard zone again, fearing me to be scarfed with like Ice Beam. But he just goes out to his zone, and I'm going to go hard Gliscor here, which is really nice because now I can make the knockoff play, knocking off Lando's choice scarf, which is going to be amazing for Gren. Now Gren doesn't have to fear him going for a scarf U-turn. My Zam doesn't have to fear a scarfed U-turn from this Landorus. So very solid turn there for me. Gonna go into Blue here as he goes for the obvious U-turn, but didn't want to risk him going for Hidden Power Ice on my Gliscor there, as preserving health on Gliscor is going to be important for switching into Flash Cannons from zone and checking the Zam, because Zam's a big threat. And he has zone to always trap Selly, so I have to be really careful switching Selly into his Zam. So he's going to go hard out into his zone here, as I'm just going to go back into my Gliscor on his Volt Switch. And this turn, I believe I do go hard out into my Gren there, as he makes the switch into his Clef. So Clef covered the EQ effortlessly because Grassy Terrain is up and fat Clef is disgustingly fat defensively. And pretty much he would have given him free rocks, so I want to punish the rocks if he does stay in and get up at least one spike, as he is going to go to Magna Zone this turn. So I'm going to get up a spike here as he goes into zone, and right now I'm just going to fire for Z Hydro because nothing really wants to switch in. Like, granted Pharaoh can come in, but I have Hidden Power Ice, Hidden Power 5 for that the following turn, and he's more than likely going to go back into Clef here after realizing that my Ninja is a Protean set and like I'm spiked, so I probably have coverage for this zone, or alternatively I can just stay in and start spiking up on him. So I feel like he's going to want to go Clef here. I probably don't have Gunk Shot based on the way I've played this Gren thus far, and him going Clef gives him rocks if he does want to take that option. But ultimately, like, Z Hydra will smash this zone, and I'm pretty sure he's Scarf Zone at this stage in the match, just based on the composition of his team. So gonna fire off the Hydra here, as his Clef is going to take a ton from this Z Hydra. He's going to take 75, so he's going to be in range of another Hydra here. And if anything, his Clef is just weakened, which is really nice for the rest of my team. Stuff like Gliscor, if this was like a random Ice Beam Clef, is pretty much now handled. Granted, my team has a pretty nice time versus Clef between Selly and Blue and Zam. I'm pretty well covered versus this Clef, but weakening this is nice, and it's going to force a switch here. So if I could, if I really wanted to, I could have spiked here, but no reason to let this Clef heal up when it's in range of Hydro. I'm just going to fire one off as he brings in Gren. Had he gone into Pharaoh, again I had a Hidden Power 5 for that, so that wasn't safe. As his Gren is going to take 41 from this Hydra, and he's going to take the spike, which is going to be really nice. Now I can really just click a Hydra once more. I don't have to worry about dying to like a Specs Dark Pulse because it can't kill me from this range. And his Gren is more than likely going to click Ice Beam or some kind of U-turn or Spike, predicting my Bullet to come in here. As he actually clicks Ice Beam here and he gets the freeze, so he specs Ash Gren, and he's going to freeze my Gren, which is pretty unfortunate for me because my own Gren is pretty amazing versus Super's team, so unfortunate there, but it's not the end of the world. I am going to preserve Gren's Death Fodder. It's nice to have Death Fodder, especially with his Zam in the back, who's a pretty big threat. As I'm really weakening his team down to the point where something like Zam or Selly can just wrap this game up if I can remove the zone. So he's locked into the Ice Beam here. I'm gonna bring in my Mega T-Tar, and I'm gonna Pursuit Trap this Gren, and this is gonna be really nice because now the rest of my team is just gonna go ham. Something like Gliscor really just takes on the rest of his team. If he's Hidden Power Ice Zam, which is something that like he could be at this stage, that's the only real thing that can threaten it. So he's going to go into his Lando here. I'm going to switch hard out into my Gliscor as he does go for the U-turn, and Gliscor gives me a pretty favourable matchup versus anything that he wants to bring in, but he does bring in Zam here, and right here I'm not going to risk dying to like a Psychic crit or him having Hidden Power Ice, and based on the nature of his team, it's so Gliscor weak that I do feel it's just certainly possible that he may have Hidden Power Ice in this Zam. So I'm going to go into my Gren to sack it off here, as he does show Psychic, and this implies that he's not hidden power ice or that he's preserving the bluff. He's preserving hidden power ice in the back until late game, which could be a really solid play as well. So we don't know this yet. Like, this information is still unknown. But I'm going to bring in my AV Bulu here and just click Horn Leech. I don't have to make predictions with Ferrothorn because it's at a range of health where it will die from Superpower if he does stay in. And if he pivots to Lando or Clef here, I'm just getting Grassy Terrain Recovery back. So I'm willing to play this endgame sort of willing to play this endgame safely and not having to risk making like aggressive plays. Like, I could have Superpowered there, or I could have you know, predicting Ferro. I could have Woodhammered here or Horn Leeched here predicting the Lando, but just based on the mons I have left and the kind of matchup that Gliscor has and my own Zam in the back has versus the rest of his team, I don't really have to make those kind of aggressive plays here. So I am going to Superpower. It's going to do nothing to this Lando, but it is chipping it. It's chipping it in range of Life Orb Psychic, which is really nice from Zam. He's now in range of a high roll from my Zam Psychic, but assuming he's like a bulky Scarf Lando, which is backed up by the damage he's taking from Superpower. But he needs to take like a round of rocks or just a little bit more chip for him to be in guaranteed range of Life Orb Psychic, so that's important to know. This turn I'm going to switch back out into my Tyranitar. The reason I go Tyranitar here is because I don't want to risk him going for Hidden Power Ice predicting my Gliscor, which is a fantastic switch into his U-turns, and again, Gliscor matches up amazingly versus the rest of his team. And if he went for Hidden Power Ice there, he could have potentially crit me. Like, there's no point risking that when T-Tar's essentially done its job. Rocks would be really nice here, and if he does go for Hidden Power Ice here, that's going to be really nice because I can get up Rocks, which is going to be very nice for chipping down this Lando, as I mentioned just earlier. But ultimately, yeah, going Gliscor risked the HP Ice crit, going Selly risked him trapping me with Zone, which is just annoying, and Selly's amazing here, so I don't want to lose it. T-Tar's the most expendable, as he does go for the U-turn, so yeah, he's now going to bring in his Zone here. And I'm going to stay in this turn. I think I do just stay in and sack off my T-Tar as he goes to the Flash Cannon. The reason I do this is because now Zam gets to come in and claim one, so I'm going to go for the Focus Blast as he does sack off his Ferrothorn. He doesn't really have a Psychic resist now. Like, he's got his own Zam, but that thing is going to take a ton, and he always risks taking a Shadow Ball, as he's now going to bring in Lando. And even though he's knocked off, as I mentioned, he's still out of range of a min Psychic roll, so I'm not going to risk it here. I'm just going to go back out into my Gliscor, as he's going to go into his Zam once again, and he's going to trace my Poison Heal, but he's taking some nice chip from the Spike, as well as the Sandstorm here. And this turn I'm going to go for the Knockoff. Now, I go for Knockoff even though Earthquake would have done more, because if he went out to Lando here, wanting to get the Intimidate drop on my Gliscor, to then pivot back out into his Alakazam to check me 1v1, because he actually is Recover Zam. Recover is now common on Zam. Knockoff would have guaranteed that Lando took the chip it needed to go down to my own Zam Psychic. And if he is Psychic, he threatens me out the following turn, regardless. If he is Recover, sorry, he threatens me out the following turn, regardless of had I gone for EQ there, because Psychic is a clear 2-hit KO, and he gets the Spit F drop, and he can always recover up on this. So going for Knockoff there covered him making the kind of safe play into Lando, getting the Intimidate drop off of my Gliscor. So my Gliscor's going to live to see another day. I'm going to switch him out here. No point in sacking him off when I can always roost up on stuff like Zone, Lando, and the Clef, if Lando's not clicking Hidden Power Ice. As I am going to go for Leech Seed this turn, as he does make the hard switch out into his Zone, and this is nice because Selly's pretty defensive. Like, I'm pretty much almost full Fizz Def, but I still will be able to take on this Zone 1v1 because Leech Seed, Protect, and Flamethrower are just going to do it for me here, and Scarf Zone is nowhere near as strong as Specs, so Selly is going to get the Leech Seed kill on Zone, and that's going to put me at a reasonable amount of health where I can just take on the rest of his team essentially. So he's going to pivot into Clef after having dropped my Selly's attack with the Intimidate, which is pretty smart because now Clef will be able to tank heavy slams and successfully softboiled up on Selly regaining HP and stalling out heavy slams if I do stay in. But the reason why this is fine is because I do have Encore Zam in the back and I've got an AV Bulus, so I'm just going to stay in here and click Heavy Slam a few times, just getting some lefties back with my Selly, as it will help in a late game situation versus the Zam if it comes down to Selly versus Zam. So as you see, even with the Intimidate drop, like, Heavy Slam's still doing 47, it's still doing a decent chunk, which is threatening him, you know, to recover with Soft Boiled eventually. So this time I'm going to go out into my Bulu, as I'm pretty satisfied with the amount of health that Selly got back up to. And right here, I'm just going to go for the Horn Leech, get some health back off in this Clefable. Really super at this stage, should just spam. He should just spam like Soft Boiled if he assumes me to be a Soulfest, as outside of terrain, Clef can take hits from Bulu pretty well, but under terrain, like Woodhammer is going to comfortably to a KO, and Horn Leech into Woodhammer here is going to take out the Clef, so he actually chooses to Moonblast there instead of just spamming Soft Boiled, maybe in an attempt for his Zam to be able to take me out with a Psychic, but he fails to take me out here, and Bulu is just going to take out the Zam there with the Horn Leech. Even if he had dropped Bulu, I had Selly in the back, and yeah, Selly was at a really nice amount of health where Zam wouldn't be able to kill it with anything, even a Focus Blast there, so Bulu is going to take out the Lando, and that's going to be my first game up against Suapah. Yep, good win, good way to start out World Cup. I'm going to pause it here and we'll jump into the next game. Alright, so we're here with game 2, and this game I'm up against Tricking. Now, I didn't build this team for this game. I decided I'd use a team, like a pretty old team, that's pretty solid. Like it's kind of updated a little bit, but it's based on a pretty old archetype that was pretty popular a few months ago. But yeah, essentially it's a lefties DD Zygarde. I think it could be Coil Glare actually. I forget, but pretty bulky, like offensive Zygarde. Pretty standard Mega Venu. It's a Scarfed Gren, a Scarfed Spikes Gren, Rocks Clef. I think this is Life Orb Zam. Yeah, it's Life Orb Encore Recover Zam, and then a defensive Selly. Now Tricking's brought some sort of like Chansey cheese with Volcarona. Probably, yeah, obviously like Mega Sizzle, probably Mega Sizzle or Mega Tita. You don't really see Mega Tita much, even though I did run it in my game 1. And potentially Scarfed Lando, given how weak he is to Zygarde. Well, those are my thoughts at matchup anyway, but we'll see once we jump into it. So, yeah, I'm going to lead off with, he's going to lead off with Chansey, as I do lead off with my Gren. Gren pretty much covered him leading Lando. I could just scare it out and then get my rocks up with Clef, but he leads off with Chansey, so I'm just going to U-turn out into my Clef and get up my rocks, because getting up rocks and keeping up rocks is going to be pretty critical in checking his kind of one threat to my team, that is Volk. Like, Volk is the biggest threat, like hands down. Titar, Sizz, they all get checked by my team. Even if he's like Bantar, he still gets checked by the likes of, you know, like my Zygarde and my Clef, depending on what move he wants to lock himself into. So, yeah, Volk is really the main threat here. And you see his Chansey throws out the T-Wave. T-Wave is not something you see on Chansey often, but it's yeah, it's going to be a kind of theme with his team. So, right here, I'm just gonna set up my rocks as he does go out to his Tapu Fini here, and yeah, at this stage I'm kind of thinking he could be like double defog Fini. He could even be triple defog, honestly, as ridiculous as it sounds. But given that Volk is pretty much one of his only forms of offensive kind of pressure in this game, he could be triple defog. Or this could be some, like, I don't know, whack triple defog team with Sizz, you know, Scarfed defog Lando and Fini. So, which would really stall out like Stealth Rocks from the opposing team. He's going to defog here, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to go into my Venu and Mega Evolve as he goes back out into his Chansey. And right here I'm going to knock off, so I remove that Things of Violate, which is going to be really nice for something like my Zam and my Zygarde in the late game if I can beat down Chansey. So I'm going to go back out into my Clef as he just sets up, as he just softballs up, so this is really nice. This turn I can just get my rocks back up once again. Obviously, like Rock's Clef looks really nice here because I am like Rock CM, so I can always calm mind up on Fini, and you know, assuming he isn't like taunt Fini, I can always calm mind up and softball it up and just maintain my rocks in that 1v1. But I am parried, so that's something you got to keep in mind. As he's just going to defog again, and I'm going to get my rocks back up this turn as he goes out to his Scizor. Now this turn I'm going to go back out to my Venu, as it does threaten his, it does sort of force his Fini not to come in, because that is his defog mon, and Venu, you know, Giga Drain Sludge Bomb is going to be doing quite a bit, and if he does want to come in, then I can chip that thing down. But he's just going to U-turn out here into his Lando, and this turn I'm thinking, oh, he's probably defog Lando, so I'm just going to stay in and Giga Drain, as he goes for Fling, and flings his Light Ball. So this is some unset, like some Light Ball Fling, Para Lando type shit, as he's just going to defog here, and I'm just going to get the Giga Drains off. So yeah, like I said, double defog, potentially even triple with Sizz, but we don't know this at this stage. He's just going to go back out into his Chansey, as I'm going to knock off once again. and this turn I'm going to go back out into my clef to set my rocks back up, because his defoggers are getting whittled, and rocks are pretty critical into me, in me just not losing to Volk. So he's going to Ice Punch here. He's banded T-Tar, and he predicted my Zygarde to come in, but this turn I did stay in and just get up rocks, but unfortunately I get parried there, which kind of sucks, but I'm going to make the read this turn that he is just going to U-turn, expecting me to preserve my clef, and I'm just going to softboard up this turn. Defensive Scissors, Bullet Punch is doing nothing to clef anyway, so I'm just going to softboard up this turn as he does bring in his Chansey. No, I fire for Moonblast there, my bad. And yeah, his Chansey is, it's getting chipped. It doesn't have the Eviolite anymore, so Clef's Carmines are going to be doing, Clef's Moonblast, if I get the +6, are going to be doing a big chunk to this Chansey. But he's just going to start staying in here and Seismic Tossing me down. This turn I Carmined it up, but I got parried. And he's just going to start spamming Seismic Toss, because really this Clef is a real irritation to his team. If I get up some Carmines and I have my rocks up, then Volk is, like, not even Volk can take down Clef. So, assuming he's not Roost. But he's gonna get a ton of paras back to back, and he gets like 3 paras back to back, and no, sorry, he gets 2 as I Moonblast. I think I should have really softboarded there instead of Moonblasting a few turns prior, but he gets 2 back-to-back paras, which really suck, because my Clefable was in a position to 1v1 that Chansey, boost up on it, and really just take on whatever he wanted to switch in. So that really sucks, but what can you do? This turn he is going to bring in his Finny, as I'm just going to switch out to my Selly here, and this was a bad play on my part. I had no reason not to protect, because Protect blocked the defog, and he hasn't shown an item. And in the back of my head, I was thinking this could be Scarfed, like it's a whack set, but he'd already shown Fling Lando, so I was thinking he could be Trick, Scarf, Finny in the back of my head, but for some reason I stay in and I Heavy Slam instead of protecting. If I'd protected here, he actually does go for Trick, right? So if I protected here, I could have gone out into Venusaur, which would have blocked the Trick and locked him in, forcing him to switch out the following turn, and I could have just made the double into my Clef to get some lefties back, or even just fight off a hit there. So this is just a bad play by me not protecting, as he is going to trick me, and this is going to, like, Selly getting tricked isn't the end of the world, but it's more the fact that he is able to now defog, as Scarf Selly won't be able to outspeed a Finny. So it's pretty unfortunate, but I'm going to go into my Zam here and just click Psychic. No, I'm going to double to Clef, predicting his Chansey. Yeah, that's right, I made it. This is a solid play, because this puts me in a range of health where I won't drop to the Seismic Toss from Chansey. But this turn I should have gone for Rocks, because him going hard Volk is a solid play on his part, as my Volk checks are pretty much my Scarf Grand and my Zygarde, and if he can get, because his Finny's weakened, and it's pretty much established that his Finny can't defog reliably versus Carmine Clef, because it's like Trick, defog, Moonblast, Surf probably. Yeah, my Clef is a real nuisance to his team, so him getting in Volk was a fine play, but I choose to softboard up instead of getting up Rocks, and the reason this is bad is because had I got a Rocks there, I could have pressured his defoggers with, like, my Zam. My Zam just goes in versus his team now. He has a Scizor, but I've got Life Orb Focus Blast, and his Scizor's pretty weakened, and he'd be taking Rocks. His Finny is in range of Psychic, and so is his Lando, and none of them are Scarfed, so this is a poor play on my part. I should have Roxed, but I was just focused on keeping Clef healthy, as Clef was like a really solid win condition at this point, or just win condition, whether it be through Carmine or through getting up Rocks. And I think at this stage in the match I felt comfortable in letting Volk in, because I did have Zygarde and Gren in the back, so pretty, like, potentially poorly managed by me, but I do have a very bulky Zygarde in the back, which does have lefties and can take a Bug Buzz, or a +1 Bug Buzz if he does have it. But he's going to go for Bug Buzz, and he's going to crit me, and that does 69, and this crit is huge. Like, this crit means that Zygarde can no longer check this Volk, and this is what I mean by, like, had I got a Rocks there, I could have switched to Zygarde and threatened this Volk, because 1,000 arrows into a Scarfed Hydro Pump from Gren takes out Volk. But yeah, and I could have threatened him to not be able to defog the rest of the game, so pretty much Volk would have been a non-issue. But that crit and the fact that I didn't Rocks the turn earlier, yeah, really is going to set me back here. So essentially now my Volk check is Scarf Grant, and I have to get that thing in on the turn he quivers. So this turn I am going to what do? I think I just spike up, expecting his switch. It's not really going to help much though, because Finny is just going to be able to defog on whatever I want to bring in, because I am choice lock Gren. And yeah, Protean Gren would have gone ham here. Like non-choice Gren would have just gone absolutely nuts versus his team. Like the set I brought last game to my first game, like Spike's Hydro could have just gone absolutely ham here, with Finny being so weakened. But I'm just gonna bring in the Venu here as he brings in Chansey, and now I'm gonna get parried unfortunately on my Venusaur, as he is going to bring in Volk once again. Now I'm going to have to go hard Gren to prevent him from just sweeping me with Quiver, but he makes the Bug Buzz play, which was really a fine play on his part, as going hard Gren was like a play that he knew I had to make there. So this is going to give me Zam, and he's going to switch here, not wanting to risk the crit Psychic, as I am just going to take him out, his Lando out here. And he's now going to bring in back in his Chansey, and this time I'm going to go back out to Clef, because I want to pressure, I want to pressure his Volk with rocks, and I think he's going to switch hard out to Finny as I double into my Zam, trying to catch his Volk, because I have to play really aggressively at this point. Right here I am going to Psychic, and I'm going to Psychic into a Focus Blast, and it does quite a lot without the Eviolite being there, as he is going to get the Spit F drop, which is nice, because now the next Focus Blast will be able to kill. So I predict him to go Finny, I Psychic here. This thing is going to now drop to the next Psychic, so I take him out there, as he's going to bring in his Scizor, and this is a real checkmate position, because now he can just U-turn here, knowing he can tank any hit, and bring in his Volk, and pretty much wrap the game up. But he goes Chansey instead, I'm not sure why, as he just chooses to softboard up. I think going into Volk and clicking the fire move was a fine play there, as it pretty much netted him a kill, but he's just going to go into Chansey to get his health back, as this turn I'm going to double back into my Zam, predicting his Volk to come in. And this turn I go for the Psychic, but he stays in. I don't agree with this play at all, because like if I crit him there with Psychic, he lost the game straight up. But like he had a Scizor there, which I think was a better play, because like had I Psychic, Scizor, it bounces off Scizor, he U-turns the following turn into like on my Selly, on the Selly I have to make, and then he can just bring back in Volk safely and just click a fire move. But he risks it there, and I over predict. Well, I make the Focus Blast play, which is what I have to do here, because in my opinion he has to keep Volk. That is his only win con, as he just quivers up here, and that's going to be game over. So yeah, pretty unfortunate. I think I really kept myself in this game despite losing my Zygarde to a crit, and getting double parried on Clef, and I think mismanaging my turns with Clef. I think if I got rocks up that turn that he went hard Finny, and I'd protected with Selly instead of letting it get tricked, this game was mine hands down. But yeah, tricking brought some cheese, and it paid off for him. So what can I say? Fling Lando was some nice tech there, but I think I definitely got a bit unlucky in that game. So I'm going to have to bring it back for game 3. So we'll pause it here and jump into the next one. Alright, so here we are with my third and final game of the pools, going up against JohnxYui. He's from Asia, so this is going to be Oceania versus Asia. Pretty classic World Cup rivalry from back in the day. But yeah, at this stage I think Asia are eliminated. I think they could have been eliminated at this stage, but either way, we really needed this win. This win is what was going to clinch us a playoff spot. So yeah, the pressure's on. I need to win this, and of course I want to, because I really felt like yeah, mishandled game 2, and could have won that game had I had a few things gone differently, and I had it played a little bit better. But for this game I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna use one of my own teams, because the team I used for game 2, whilst it was like good back in the day, it was kind of outdated, and I wasn't as comfortable with it as I was using one of my own teams that I built. So this is a team I built a while ago. It's a pretty fun team. It's Esthete, Gliscor, Z, Keldeo with Taunt and Carmine. It's a Carmine Clef, Pursuit, Banter, Spit F Clef, Spit F Pharaoh with Spikes, and standard Mega Laddie with Ice Beam. So it's actually a timid Laddie though, which was something I was talking to my teammates before the game, and yeah, False was talking to me about like how timid Laddie can be useful, because EQ, you know, still does decent shit versus stuff like Tran and Magina and Tita, whilst the timid nature over Naive lets you take on Magma Tran a bit better, and like Stray Waters from stuff like Keldeo. So that's actually going to be really useful in this game, as you're going to see. So we're going to jump into it. I'm going to lead off with I'm going to lead off with my Keld, as he does lead off with his Gren, and this is really nice. It deters both his hazard setters turn 1, as he is just going to go hard into Pex on my Hydra here. I'm going to taunt turn 1 to prevent him from getting up T-Spikes, as he just fires off a Scald. And right here I'm going to go into my Clef to get up my Rocks, as he doesn't really want to switch anything else into my Keldeo on a potential Scald like Bulu, whilst it could be AV, risks getting burnt. So I'm going to go into my Clef here and get up my Rocks, as he's going to make the switch out into his Tran here, which is a fine play. Wisp Tran has been picking up in popularity, definitely because Spit F Gliscor is a fine check to, well, it's a shaky check to Gliscor to Tran, because he Tran just runs Z move and blows Gliscor away. But Wisp Tran wasn't something I wanted to risk, as Tran is a pretty Gliscor is a pretty solid win condition in this game, so that's one of my best switch-ins to Mawile as well. So right here, I'm going to go out to my Laddie, as I don't really mind too much if this thing does get burnt, as he does reveal the Willow. So Willow on my Laddie is going to be pretty nice, considering I did opt to go with a Timid Nature here. So I'm just going to go for EQ to get the damage off on the Heatran. Like, granted, he could have just, like, switching there was a fine play, but because I am burnt, EQ wasn't killing the Heatran, and I wanted damage off on that thing anyway. If he gone to Mawile as well, getting some EQ chip off on that would be pretty nice, but he goes to Bulu. So right here I am going to switch, I believe, not wanting to risk him being Megahorn, which is a set that I've seen JohnxYui run. I scouted him a bit. He likes to run Megahorn Bulu, and Megahorn Bulu is a fine set in my opinion, because it means it's not walled by Mega Latias. So yeah, I think it's a fine slot on Bulu, and he can definitely afford it on a team like this. So I'm gonna go out to my Clef as I dodge Nature's Madness here, and right here I'm going to switch back out into my Laddie on a Hornleech, but he's just gonna make the hard to Mawile here, which is a fine play. So right here I'm going to stay in and Psychic, wanting to get chip off on this Mawile, because if I can chip it down, it means he's gonna drop to my Keldeo's Hydra, and I don't have to waste my Z move on that. I don't have information on the Bulu yet, but the fact that he had Madness in the first place implies that he's a Soulfest, because, like, all out attacking Bulu doesn't run Nature's Madness. It's just not seen on that set. So Keldeo's looking like a fantastic win con if I can determine his Scarfer and chip down the Bulu, and pretty much determine if that thing's a Soulfest or not. So I'm going to go for the Psychic here, as he does overpredict, and go for Fire Fang. I wanted to see what kind of Mawile he was too, because if he SD'd on my Psychic, then chances are he was SD Sucker, play rough with like Fire Punch, and I always had Gliscor in the back. I just need to burn some grassy terrain turns. So I also had Keldeo, who could always take Sucker Punches and revenge this Mawile if it came to it. So he's going to play rough right here, as I do bring in my Gliscor, and this turn I am out of Sucker Punch range, I believe, so I'm just going to roost up, as he is going to make the switch out to his Gren. So Gliscor's going to stay pretty healthy here, as he's going to bring in his Greninja, and I believe this turn I just go hard out into my Thero, as he fires off a Pump, and that reveals to be Specs, and that's nice for me, because that's pretty much one less thing to worry about with my Keld. He's not Protean, extra sensory Gren, so that's one less check to my Keldeo win con here. So this turn I do just spike up, as he brings in his Lando, and this thing is more than likely a Scarfed bulky Lando, considering how extremely weak he is to Zygarde apart from his Bulu. So he's going to reveal Defog, so this is indeed Scarfed bulky Lando more than likely. And I'm just going to spam spikes, because I come out of this exchange at full health and with a spike up, and with 2 spikes up actually, because I stall out his Defogs with spikes. So he loses this 1v1, he's waiting for a potential slip up, but I'm not going to make it. I'm just going to spam spikes, and I come out of this exchange with 2 spikes up, which is fine, as he's just going to Magma Storm here, and my Laddie choose that, and I'm just going to roost up here as he brings back out his Lando. And I think this turn I do stay in and go for the Ice Beam, which covered him staying in and defogging, but him going into anything else that wasn't like a Mawile was fine here as well, because I can just roost up the following turn. Gren was a decent play there as well, as it would have forced my Laddie out and left me very weak, but he does choose to go out to his Pex, so I'm just going to roost back up. And right now I'm in range of a U-turn, so I don't want to take that. And I'm just going to go into my Pharaoh to chip this Lando down a little bit further, as this will allow him to bring back in his Heatran. But I've got 2 great checks to Heatran, and the fact that he's not Z-move, like he hasn't shown Z-move on this Tran, makes me think, Lefty, sorry, that makes me sort of think that he is Z-move, and based on his team, this is his only viable Z-move user, because his Lando is probably Scarf. So he's going to go for the Magma Storm and miss, as I go into my Bantar. That would have done very little. But this is going to give me a stone edge as he does stain and wisp. So whilst it sucks that my T-Tar is burnt, it wasn't really useful this game. T-Tar wasn't really achieving much here at all. But getting chip on this Heatran is really important because, yeah, my Ferrothorn really appreciates this thing being whittled, so he doesn't have a nice switch into Ferro essentially, and Clef also appreciates that thing being gone. So right here I'm just going to stain an edge again as I get a crit on his Lando, which is pretty big. Lando wasn't healing up obviously on anything, he doesn't have wish, but getting any sort of chip on this Lando was nice because it just gives it less and less opportunities to come in on rocks if I do get them up. But he does end up switching in and taking a crit there, which is pretty unfortunate, as that would have done considerably less considering I was burnt and at -1. So he is going to go for the defog here, and as I just bring him back in my Ferro, it covered him going for U-turn. It would have taken him out with Iron Barbs there. So I'm just going to get my spikes back up and kind of rinse and repeat this process because I have such great checks to this Heatran. I can kind of afford to just throw in T-Tar here and trap him with Pursuit, putting him in range of an entry hazard. So he's going to go for Magma Storm and then proceed to fire off the Groundium Z. So had he hit that Groundium, I would have, had he hit that Magma Storm, I would have been in range for that Z move. But so that's pretty unfortunate for him. But it's, I mean, like, again, I have fantastic checks to his Heatran. I have Keldeo and Gliscor who naturally check it offensively, as well as my Laddie. And every time he comes in on hazards, he gets closer and closer to going down. I think he's at like, had I not been able to pursue him there, he would have been at like 26 or 22 or something like that. So he only had a few more entry hazards switch-ins there. So I'm going to go back out to my Laddie here, and I think I just roost up as he brings in his Bulu, and it's at this stage that I decide I want damage off on this Bulu. I want to put this thing in range of my Keldeo's Hydro Pump at +1 or like Z move at neutral after a spike. So I'm just going to start firing off Ice Beams as he does stay in, and I think he goes for the Nature's Madness here. He does, so he's weakening my Laddie, but that's fine. Laddie has pretty much served its purpose here. Tran is pretty much a null kind of factor in this game at this stage. So I'm going to go for Ice Beam as he goes hard into Gren, and I'm going to go back out into my Ferro, I believe, this turn. Grassy Terrain is up, so I'll be getting that extra recovery, and his Hydro Pump would have only done about 24 or something like it did last time, but he misses there, so I would have got most of that back in recovery from Grassy Terrain and lefties, but over 2 turns there. But he does miss, which is unfortunate for him. He would have got a little bit of net chip off of my Ferro, but I'm going to go for knockoff here, just expecting him to potentially go into Bulu on my Leech Seed, which would have given him some Grassy Terrain recovery back. And if I could knock off his Assault Vest, then Keldeo pretty much wins the game at this point. But he's going to go into his Mawile here on the potential Leech, which is a pretty bold play, as this is one of his only win cons left at this stage. So he's going to Fire Fang here on my Gliscor, and I think this turn I do just go for the Earthquake as he brings in his Lando. Yeah, I just go for EQ here, pretty safe play. It gave me some chip off on the Bulu if he had gone to that. This turn I'm going to go into my Clef, because if he defogged there, so Clef was a fine play here, because if he hidden power iced on my Gliscor, that would have done significant damage and I risked getting crit there. If he defogged, I get my Rocks up this turn, which is going to... Lando's forced out because it can't lock itself into defog, and Rocks ensure Lando dies the next time it comes in. So overall, Clef was the best play I could make there, as he is just going to go back out to Mawile. So Rocks ensure that Lando is now dead, and as well as Heatran. So I can now just bring in my Gliscor. It's not as necessary for this endgame, as Heatran and Landorus are both dead, and I can just roost up this turn on his Play Rough. It's kind of some Play Rough Sucker Punch mind games here. His Play Rough is doing a ton of damage to me, and unfortunately he gets the attack drop here, so it's a 50-50 of sorts. But even if I lose this 50-50, I have my Keldeo in the back, so I can always check this Mawile. And he's going to win it, and he's going to go for Sucker Punch here, taking out my Gliscor there. So right here I'm going to bring in Keld. He's going to sack off his Heatran, as I do just go for the Hydro. I didn't want to bust my Z move there, because had I done that I wouldn't have had it for the Bulu, and Bulu's not actually in range of my Z move. As crazy as that is, AV Bulu's pretty bulky, so I'm going to go into my Ferro on his Madness, and I think this turn I do just go for the knockoff, and that is going to remove his Assault Vest, which is going to be really big for this endgame with Keldeo, as all the pieces are really in place for Keldeo to win. So I'm going to go out into my Clef as he does go for the Superpower on my Ferro, And the reason I do this is because keeping Pharaoh around for a Gren in case he somehow does get his Ash off, and I have to have a Water Shuriken check in the back. I have it, as Clef will be able to take on this Bulu at -1. I think this turn I do just fire for Moonblast, as he's going to go back out into his Mawile. I think I just stay in here and spam Moonblast, or either that or I sack off my Laddie. No, I think I go into my Laddie, I sack off my Laddie because I don't want him to, set up a ton with a Swords Dance. So I'm just going to go into my Laddie and sack it off here, as Keldeo will be able to wrap this game up. I'm going to hit a pump here. I had to save my Z move for the Bulu, and just to guarantee the kill. So I hit the pump, I knock out Bulu with the Hydro Vortex, and he's now going to bring in his Gren here, and I guess attempt to flinch me down. The nice thing is I do have the grassy terrain up, so even if he did flinch me, I have some nice passive recovery each turn, and I always have Clef to go into as well. Clef was also a pretty fun win con at this stage because his Landorus is dead, it checks Gren with a Carmine up, assuming like he switches out and is able to click Hydro, and I have Pharaoh to always get the leech up versus the Pex, and bring back Clef and Keld's HP with the Leech Seed recovery. So he's going to go back out into his Toxapex here, as I do just go for the taunt. He's going to fish for Skull Burns here, and which is his best play. And right here I'm going to go for the Carmine, just really wasting some PP of his Scalds and getting up to a point where I can just 1v1 this Toxapex, even if he does burn me, by getting high enough with my Carmine, so I'll just be able to 1v1 this thing. And he's gonna lose his taunt here, as I do just taunt again, and he's just gonna stay firing off those Scalds, and it's pretty much game over at this point, because even if he does burn my Keldeo, I have Leech Seed in the back of Pharaoh, and I have a ton of Carmine PP on Clef, and because I have taunt, I can taunt him into an attacking move, and eventually when he runs out of Scalds, he's gonna be forced to struggle, as he won't be able to click an attacking move if he runs out of PP. That's gonna be wearing down Pex. So Pex doesn't come out of this situation on top, but because he does have Baneful Bunker, that's just another kind of means of him stalling out, I guess, my taunt PP. But he sacks off Lando to become, immune to the taunt, and switch back in, and Baneful Bunker wearing me down with the burn damage. So I'm just going to go out into my Pharaoh and proceed to leech him up, as he just forfeits here. So that's going to be the game. That's going to be a nice way to win out this World Cup. And I think this game was what clinched my team playoffs. Our old gen players went like 3-0 in each of their pools, so that's just fantastic. A really solid performance from them. And our new gen guys really picked it up this year as well, so that's great to see. So we're on to round 2 of World Cup, and when that comes around, I'll try and upload my game in that. So we'll see when that comes around. But I hope you guys did enjoy. It's a bit different from the usual draft content I upload, but I hope you guys did enjoy nonetheless. Maybe you learned a thing or two. And yeah, that's gonna be it from me. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you guys thought of my World Cup games. If you want to see any more Smogon content, let me know. It's always good to hear feedback from you guys, but that's gonna be it. I'll catch you guys later.